nice sunny day here in London. Excellent. Yeah, I went rock climbing today the first time in years, since high school really. It was a great opportunity to remind myself of what I'm truly capable of. And having dealt with some social anxieties for most of my life, and then having them be exacerbated by COVID, you gotta expose yourself to what scares you. You have to deal with your problems head on, your threats, whomever you find threatening, and of course, because if we don't challenge each other, there is no change, there is no improvement, there is no personal efficacy, right? There is no reinforcement of personal character. And these are important things to have in the central identity, including integrating your dark side. And I have a very dark side. I appreciate it for what it does for me, because everybody has the potential for violence, but it's better, as I have done in my entire life, to channel that want and that need to hurt or strike into something productive, like art or writing, something creative, because only the weak strike out in anger. Only the weak run from their problems and run from the people that challenge them. Only the weak destroy civilizations for the purpose of their dominance. And this has to do, as I've said before, and now that I've put this out there, I'm really coming to a general idea of what I want to give to this world as part of my legacy, and in writing and in art. And it has to do with the history of propaganda. And anything can be propaganda. This what I'm doing right now itself is propaganda. It's a weaponized art in order to get a message across that you can't take me down. You can't take down a person that speaks the truth just for speaking the truth and for confronting people with their problems. You see, because we've had it very good for a very long time in North America. We've had a decadent society for a very long time. And what the propaganda does, especially with commercialism, is weaponize commercialism. So like the Edward Bernays and the marketing, right? The Mad Men mentality of what's the word? Product placement and so on and so forth. Predictive programming. Subtle things in order to get people to buy and consume. Public relations and so forth. These are all shining examples of the mirror, right? And what do you do with a Medusa? You shine the mirror into the Medusa so that it sees a reflection of itself. Because nobody wants to be confronted with their own dark side and their own inability to deal with their problems. And this is what, not being true to oneself is what destroys relationships. When you're not being honest with your dark side, and you're not being honest with your partner, you're not communicating what's going on and why you feel a certain way. But the insidious nature of the propaganda, the culture at large, in order to manipulate and undermine, an existing order of things and cultural touchstones and idols and idolatry. Now, I'm not going to get into religious connotations of propaganda, because it's all right there in the iconography and art history. If it's done out of love, then it's obvious. But if it's done out of spite, it's even more obvious. Because whatever that idol or that iconography represents becomes a conflict and a point of jealousy. Because you can't be what you're not, especially when you betray oneself for an idealism. But no one wants to believe, especially with modern day propaganda having to do with identity and gender and sexuality. I empathize with these people because they've had a hard life. Obviously, there's been some trauma gone on in their lives, and some massive amount of mental torment. But that's how it works, is through the feedback loop, right? The desensitization of the reward system. You're hacking people, and then when they don't have an identity anymore, you build them up into what you want them to be, which is, soldiers for a fortune. They become willing mercenaries for a cause that they don't know where the money they don't necessarily know where the money comes from, but some of them do, and then where the money goes is even more dubious in a lot of cases. A lot of people, as I said in my 2 of my videos yesterday, in my thesis statement, that there's people out there that profit off the backs of special interests like cultural movements and so forth, and they enslave you and me into this, divide and conquer existence, so that, you got your left and your right side of things, or male and female, right? Or male and female and the other, and so on and so forth. Because if nobody has an agreement as to what they are, then nobody knows who they are. And if nobody knows who they are, then it's easy to mold them into exactly what you want them to be. And I speak from experience, knowing what power really is. I give credit because I always give respect to the military. I always give respect to cadets and to anyone that's in service as a first responder. Because I myself see, I have the same capabilities and same intentions. I'm trying to respond to a huge problem of an endemic, right, of mental illness. Having dealt with this and these stresses my entire life, personal experience, also having been in relationships with people that have, massive undealt with traumas, and they don't know how to deal with them, and they get loaded up with drugs, like pharmaceuticals, and then they compound them with even worse behaviors, because the foundation of the family has been broken apart historically through trying to increase productivity in North American culture by putting women into the workforce. You see, this is a multifaceted thing, and that's why I have to extrapolate this into something larger and grander, right? Illusions of grandeur, even grander. Must be a psycho. When you're trying to accomplish something, you have to turn into an absolute monster, as someone else says. Turn into an asshole. And right here, I'm the largest asshole you're going to run into. Self-centered entirely. Because if you don't look after yourself, how are you supposed to look after others? How are you supposed to be a lifeguard if you don't look after yourself? How are you supposed to be a cop? How are you supposed to be EMS? How are you supposed to be a doctor? How are you supposed to be a psychotherapist or any of these things? How are you supposed to be a fireman? Right? The fire hall is just right over there. I pass by it on a regular basis. And everyone wants to think that it's easy to be a man and to be a leader and be masculine, but it's not, because it's a responsibility. It's not a clout or a hype machine motivated thing, because you're doing it as a selfless thing. You're the best in order to be in that position, right? But as the psychology goes and as the corruption happens, right, people rise to the position of their incompetence. So a lot of the time, mistakes happen in culture, and in very smart people make mistakes, even in the science world, right? We have these assumptions because it all depends. These theories, right? Because climate change theory, it's not a law, right? But people don't understand the method of scientific inquiry and the logic. I'm going to come out and say it and stand by that, you know, because as is the history, but the history is continually erased, you see, and obfusified and made, you know, obscure and esoteric, right? Loaded with words that have multitudes of meanings, doublespeak, Hegelian dialect, so on and so forth. And far away from the nature of things. So I don't ask for your sympathy or your empathy, let alone for you to feel anything for me at all. Because we need hard people now. And we have to stand for what we believe in. We're never too old to stand up for what we believe in. You know, hack down the ideology. And what, you know, we pave paradise and put up a parking lot. We are too far removed from the natural order of things. And we're going to change that as best we can. Now, Hazel, how are you? This little lady here, I've had her since she was a pup. Right? And look at how happy she is. So when you take care of your family, you don't take care of them like dogs. You don't treat them like children. You treat children like adults. That's what I learned from cadets. You treat children like adults, and they'll respond like adults. Simple as that. So let's go back to treating each other like adults instead of emotionally manipulating everybody. Because propaganda is scary.